Hello everybody, it's I Prefer Retro Games here, and I am back with another video today. And today's video is actually going to be a top 10 list. This is kind of another new idea for my channel, but I think it's extremely doable. I mean, I got enough material for it. I'll making sure this video gets edited, and just gonna make sure I post this on YouTube like I usually do. So, today's top 10 list is actually gonna be top 10 video game controllers I have in my collection. Now, keep in mind, I know there are way more video game controllers out there. But this is just going to mainly focus on controllers from my collection. So, it's just going to be from controllers from the least best to the best, if you know what I'm talking about. We're going to be going over controllers that I think, in my opinion, deserve a top spot. And these will be good recommendations for controllers to have in your collection, as long as you have the right console for it. So please enjoy the video. Make sure to comment, like, subscribe in the end, and please sit back, relax, and just enjoy the video. Thank you. Number 10, the 8-bit Gamepad, or otherwise known as the SF30 Pro. Now, let me go off by saying a little disclaimer. First of all, this is actually one of my most favorite controllers from the Nintendo Switch, and I actually like it more than the Gamecube controller, so why it's low on the list, I mean, it is definitely well more than worthy to be a top 10, absolutely. I mean, just look at this thing. I absolutely fucking love the color buttons, probably the best start and select buttons, and the D-pad feels nice too. Literally compatible with all games for Nintendo Switch. And this thing is an absolute masterpiece when it comes to controllers. But let me explain the flaws real quick. So the reason it's on number 10, so for one, the D-pad acts really weird. Like, if I press down or up, either my character or menu or options will like veer. Like if I'm playing Super Nintendo for Nintendo Switch Online, like if I'm trying to select the game by going down, for example, like even if I'm just pressing down, it'll just go to the right or the left depending on which way I'm kind of veering. And so, like I said, this thing has a classic feel overall, and one of the overall, just to point that out by the way, if I didn't already mention that, one of the other flaws is, this thing has been really annoying me lately. It's just been like turning off at random, like if I'm just playing a game, like I was playing Castlevania Circle of the Moon with this thing, and I was fighting this one devil monster, well kinda, and this thing just shut off at random, and I ended up dying. Like, it wasn't a boss or anything, it was just a minor enemy. Another thing that really, grinds my gears is this thing takes way too long to connect. Like, if I'm even trying to connect it properly, like, sometimes I have to get another controller, go to the Switch go to that menu on Switch, which allows you to connect and hook up controllers, and I have to, get another controller to get this thing to connect. It should just be one and done. Like, if you take the GameCube controller or the Switch Joy-Cons, for example, they just connect right away. And sometimes this thing doesn't even connect at all. I mean, I have this thing connected to my Switch, and it's, hooked up to it. And once in a while, I might even need, the charger for this thing just to hook it up to the USB port to my Switch. So, yeah, numerous amount of flaws I just stated. But overall, like I said, this is a really good controller, and this definitely takes number 10 spot. Number 9 are the Nintendo Switch Joy-Cons. For one, they are customizable. So yeah, literally compatible with all games. I mean, would you really want to play retro games like this though? But, I mean, yeah, you got this thing you can connect them to. It's like a normal controller. You can connect them to the Switch for it to be handheld mode. For people who have a Nintendo Switch, there's not much to introduce here. The Joy-Cons are a pretty good controller. But that fucking drift, though! That drift is so annoying, especially these. The reason these aren't working right now is because they're dead on battery. But, I'm playing Doom Eternal, okay? Or Minecraft. And at random, it'll just, spin around. And you know what? That's kind of a common problem with these. There are other common problems, the reason these are also low on the list is because these things aren't perfect. They're good, but Nintendo could, I think Nintendo, like, hopefully Nintendo, like, when they re-release these, they fix some of the problems. But these things are very annoying to deal with sometimes. Like, between the drift and some other, like, problems that other people have faced that I haven't, fortunately. I mean, the drift is the main thing that's kind of a turn-off for these. And one really weird thing I need to mention is, like, it's just this one. It's not any other, Joy-Con that does this. This one specifically that came with the Switch, this thumbstick gets really oily sometimes. Like, if I leave it out, it just gets kind of moist on top of here. Like, can somebody please explain to me why that is? It's just like I'm like either playing a game and it just gets like really moist on here for no reason. It's probably from the sweat of my thumbs, or it's just like, it just gets really oily, which is kind of a turnoff as well. What I do also like about these is, if you like hold this down or press on it, it either like takes a picture or captures a video if you hold it down. Like, and that's a really, really neat feature. That's one of the so just for that reason, I gotta hand it to the Switch Joy-Cons. That's one of my favorite features of any controller ever made, really. Because I can record gameplay and look back and just look at all the memories I had fun playing that certain game. So, the Switch Joy-Cons aren't bad, but they do have flaws. But they're still past the 8-bit controller, so these take the number 9 spot for top 10 gaming controllers I have. Number 8, the Hori Fighting Stick. This is, I gotta say, this is a must-have for people who are a fan of arcade games between Switch or PlayStation or Xbox, I believe. Oh, no, wait, actually this is just for Nintendo Switch, basically. But little do you guys know, or, if you're kind of new to gaming, so the USB, this thing has a USB cable. So if you were to hook this up to a laptop or a computer and you went to an emulation site that plays emulated games legally, then you can hook this thing up and you can, like, the buttons here are extremely mappable. You got all these button combinations, and this thing, the buttons feel really great. Ooh, I like the sound of that. This thing takes number 8 spot, which is quite getting up there. The joystick feels a little loose here. It didn't take too long to feel loose. I think that happened when I was playing Street Fighter or something on Switch. The button mapping here is also really confusing. Like, if I'm trying to press one button, like if I'm trying to capture gameplay footage or trying to start a game, like I'll accidentally hit the wrong button, and that can get very annoying. They do have these little icons here, but if you can't see them, then you're just gonna have to do it by memorization. I like how the back buttons are part of the buttons here. Like I said, there's really no problem with the buttons. So, this thing, the design is pretty neat. It's smaller. It's kind of a smaller version of, like, a lot of fighting sticks for Switch or, like, for any system. So, this thing is, like I said, this thing is overall a pretty good controller. And I would also recommend this one for Switch. Number 7, the OG, or in this case, I think it's the Super Nintendo Junior Super Nintendo controller. This thing is an actual licensed SNES controller. You got the Nintendo logo. It's not the original, considering that the logo is changed here a bit. This is for, like, on the back it also says Nintendo controller model. Like, it says Super Famicom. But it's still a licensed controller nonetheless. My main flaw with this thing is, I love the design, by the way. For one, the D-pad feels absolutely fantastic. Probably the best feeling D-pad. The start and select are a bit rubbery, but my problem with this controller is, like, listen to this. Like, if you can listen real closely, or, yeah, the buttons, it's the Y and X specifically, but they feel a little bit stiff. I don't know if that's from years of use or just aging. The thing is in pretty mint condition overall, and this makes it, this end makes it very compatible with the Super Retron HD. So that's why I got this controller. I wanted an OG Super Nintendo controller for my Retrons so I could get a better feel with my games. So this thing is good quality overall, and considering it's licensed by Nintendo, it's not just good quality, it's Nintendo quality. But regardless, there are higher controllers on the list, and we're going to get right to that. Number 6 spot is a controller I feel that should be higher on the list, but I'll get why that it's at this spot in a sec. Okay, number 6 we have the original Sony PlayStation 1 controller. This may be the oldest controller I have, actually. If you look on the back, it actually says it's actually model 1080. I think that's like one of the oldest model controllers. So this thing might be from 1994, which is very old. But however, this is one of the best controllers I have yet again. The buttons, like, there's really nothing wrong with it. I mean, it's compatible with all games, I believe, even if the ones that like heavily depend on the DualShock. However, these back buttons, they got updated later in the DualShock, but I'll get to that. I like this. I like the end piece over here. The buttons are colorful. The start and select. I mean, a lot of the controllers I have in this list, are almost all of them, actually are pretty rubbery. There's really not much to say about this one, in my opinion. It's just a classic controller. It has that classic PlayStation 1 feel. Just a classic, you know. I mean, I guess the reason it's on this list is because it is a step down from DualShock, but I really have no problem with it. I mean, like I said, the back buttons could be, like, they're less up. I mean, I don't really care for the way they're, like, less updated here. I mean, I guess that's really it, though. I mean, I'm not the biggest fan of rubbery buttons, but let me know if this controller deserves a higher spot in the list. So let's get to number 5. Now, number 5 is gonna shock you a little bit, but let me explain why it is. So number 5 is the Hyperkin SNES controller. So this is the one that came with the Super Retron. So this is actually one of my most functional SNES controllers. The buttons are more clicky. They feel way less stiff than the OG SNES controller. The start and select are inevitably going to be rubbery. The D-pad feels pretty good. The back buttons also feel good. My main complaint about this controller is it feels cheap. I mean, despite it being one of the best SNES controllers I have, it does feel cheap. It does have a cool design. I like what they were going for. I like these things on top here. Instead of it being just curvy, they have like these cool lines. This is a cool controller. I like this. I like what they did here. Hyperkin's a good company to go for. Like I said, it works and it feels great. It also works with the original Super Nintendo. It has this port right here. So yeah, this is overall a pretty good controller. I mean, despite it being cheap feeling, it works really damn well. So, number 4, the Nintendo Switch GameCube controller. This is one of the coolest controllers I've ever seen. And I used to have the wired one. I sold that because it had the C-stick over here was kind of worn out and I didn't really want anymore. But then I got the wireless one, and this thing is a fuck ton better. So, the design is absolutely incredible. People mainly use it for Super Smash Bros., but I don't. But that's kind of my pet peeve. It's not the controller's fault. It's like the people who use this mainly use it for Smash Bros. And don't realize how good it is actually with games that require only 2 buttons, basically. I mean, you got Atari 2600 games, NES games. I mean, fuck, even Neo Geo Pocket Color the Neo Geo Pocket Color games did get released for Switch, as well as Game Boy games. And you got the 2-button layout here that's absolutely perfect for that. I don't mind playing it with the little thumbstick the A and B button are mapped out just almost like the NES or in this case, kind of like the Game Boy Advance, how they have that B and A button laid out here. I mean, it is better to play with the D-pad, but you got the button layout here. So, and I'm not going to include handhelds in this list. I'm just talking about like controls exclusively. I'll get to a list discussing like the top 5 consoles I have. So I'll get to that event, or maybe it'll just be all 7 consoles I have. So, they really improved the design here with the like 2 purple bumper buttons instead of just 1, and they have some of the best shoulder buttons. Again, I think maybe this should be higher on the list, but you got like buttons here. I mean, for God's sakes, you even have the capture card. This is a very colorful controller. Right? That's another reason why I like the 8-bit though so much. But look at how colorful this thing is. It's very appealing to the eye, and the fact that it's the original purple design just makes it even more OG. So, as I mentioned before, it's compatible with so many retro games, so if you get one of these things, just give it a chance. I mean, Mario Sunshine from Super Mario 3D All-Stars doesn't have the same button layout as this, but I personally don't have a problem with it. My main flaw with this is the A button has gotten sticky on multiple occasions. It didn't have that problem before, but I tried the toothbrush trick with some water. You scrub in between the A button, you let it dry for a couple hours, and it worked. It actually did work. Only for a little bit, though. The A button still gets sticky from time to time. Other than that, there's really not many other flaws. Okay, one thing I do have to mention is, though, I mean, you're gonna have a very tough time trying to open this if you're trying to, like, fix it or something. I managed to unscrew all 6 screws back here, but I spent, like, a good 10 to 20 minutes trying to, like, just get it open. Like, this thing is, like, glued shut or something. So even if you, like, try to, like, get in here under the crevices or wherever, like, trying to open this, you're gonna have a very tough time, like, trying to get to the whatever you need to get to. So I wouldn't, like, try to perform on yourself. Like, if you need this thing fixed, go to, like, GameStop or something, or a store that, like, fixes electronics. But other than that, you won't really need to, because this thing is absolutely great quality, so. And the bronze medal for one of the best controllers I have in my collection goes to the Nintendo Entertainment System Classic Controller. Oh man, I absolutely adore this thing. Such a cool design. I mean, look at it. I mean, just tell me in the comments that you look at this thing and don't think of just absolute, like, nostalgia. This thing is, I just love the design for one. I love the button layout. Kind of reminds me of like a Game Boy. It kind of does remind me of the Game Boy, even though that came later with the button layout, the D-pad. It's like a Game Boy without the screen, like, really. I mean, for a rectangular shape, need I mention, it's actually surprisingly comfortable. I mean, despite the shape of it, it's very, very comfortable. I mean, there is that one complaint where the wire is too short. I haven't really had a problem with that. I actually have an extension wire for this from Orsley. So, other than the short wire, oh, and also the start button, I must say, the start button works and all, but I'm having to, like, really, really push down on it just to start a game. Maybe that's just from over time, and it does work, but doesn't work as well. Some other good things to say about this is, oh yeah, and the buttons and the D-pad have a uniquely nice click to them. I mean, it could get annoying after time, but that's no surprise for all controllers, kinda, but, I mean, better than the Orsley ones I have, where it's just, like, very cheap feeling and, like, bulky, like, bulk feeling, if you know what I mean. Actually, one of the worst controllers I have, but unlike this, I mean, this is the total opposite. I mean, the Orsley controllers have a cool design, but they're one of the worst ones I have. This, however, I mean, when you look at that and just see that Nintendo logo, you know it's good quality. And that's what this is. This is a very good quality controller. So, that's really it to say about it. It's just very simplistic. It has a very simplistic design, and that's what makes it a great controller. It's just a very, very classic Nintendo controller. Alright, gonna try to move a little bit faster here. So, the silver medal, number 2 place, goes to the Sega Genesis controller. And this isn't just a regular controller, a Sega Genesis controller. And not to mention, it is actually licensed by Sega. So Sega themselves actually licensed a USB controller for the Switch, the PS3 I believe, the Sega Genesis Classic, the PC, so you could do more emulation gaming, and more. And not to mention, the buttons here are extremely mappable. I mean, you got these buttons, you got the start, or modes, select in other words. This is probably my most favorite D-pad of all time. I mean, just listen to that click, and just the way that D-pad rocks around absolutely kicks ass. Better than the SF30 Pro, I can definitely tell you that. The back buttons are also a neat touch. So definitely a must-have for Sega Genesis fans, obviously. So I think this is definitely better than any other of my controller for Switch, despite it not having thumbsticks or anything like that. I mean, there's really no problems with this whatsoever. I'll have to boot it back up and just to double check and make sure, but I'm pretty sure it still works just fine. I really like this transparent design where you can like look in and then like see all the motherboards and circuits and stuff. That's an absolutely neat touch. There's also the original black one, which a lot of people would prefer, but I kind of like this one. Again, Game Boy Advance also has a transparent design where you can look in and stuff, which makes it a lot more interesting to look at. So other things to say about this controller is, so, I mean, actually that was really it though. I mean, just, what can I say, it's one of the, I absolutely love playing with this thing. Definitely would recommend it. It's just, so, just to sum it up, it's licensed by Sega, very mappable, very doable, absolutely classic feel, once again. And now on to number 1 spot. And for the grand finale, the number 1 greatest controller I have in my collection that I have, the gold medal, the one that won the Olympics. You remember earlier how I talked about me getting back to the DualShock? Well, here it is. Number 1, the PlayStation DualShock. Oh, I don't have a lot of time left on my phone. My phone's about to run out of space again, so let me just get to the nitty-gritty. So, obviously one of the greatest controllers of all time. This thing is absolutely fucking iconic. Licensed by Sony themselves. I like the bulkiness of this thing. This thing's a bit bulkier. I mean, if you look here, it's a bit bulkier. And I like that. As I mentioned, the shoulder buttons on the original PlayStation 1 controller I didn't really care for, but here, they really learned. Man, they really learned here. They got you got the regular, they didn't really change anything here, but here, down here, you can tell these are shoulder buttons. So you got the bumpers up here, and the shoulders down here. Now you can, I mean, they more or less feel like regular buttons, which is absolutely fine. I'm totally fine with that. So, this thing is in absolute mint condition. This is, like, from 97, I believe. And this has been, like, 20 years. This thing is, like, well over 20 years old. Probably going on 25. This thing works so good. The original is great too, like I mentioned, and like I said, I think that should be higher on the list, but I still kept that at number 6. The thumbstick function can be a little weird. I mean, you do have to press this to activate these, and sometimes if you activate these, even though you find a game that should work with them, it won't work with the thumbstick. Like Crash Bandicoot, if I press this, and I try to move the thumbstick, it will just turn off the buttons completely. But I mean, I don't really find that big of a deal. We can just turn it off and the game will still work just fine. So just as a big finish, I'm just gonna say this is an amazing design. Literally very iconic design. And with the PS5 out and its futuristic looking controller, Sony has really taken the cake here. And that is the top 10 controllers of my collection. So thank you guys for watching. Comment, like, and subscribe, and I'll see you next time.